Soft crackling of a campfire, the distant hum of machinery. Alien soldiers sit in a loose circle, the air thick with the scent of scorched metal and victory. They laughed when the question was asked. It wasn't an insult, not really. More of an afterthought, an idle curiosity after a long campaign. One of the younger soldiers, barely out of his hatchling years, spoke first. Humans, he mused, tilting his head. They're small, aren't they? Fragile. Another joined in. I heard they have no claws, no natural armor, not even fangs worth mentioning. The laughter spread. It wasn't cruel, just the easy amusement of warriors who had fought and bled across 1,000 worlds. Speaking of a species barely whispered about in their ranks, Zelvar sat apart from them, silent. His scaled fingers traced the rim of his drinking vessel, the light of the fire reflecting in his yellow eyes. He had seen many battles, more than these younglings, more than most, and he had seen humans. He waited until the laughter died down, waited until their amusement had run its course. Only then did he speak. You have no idea how terrifying humans truly are. The fire crackled. The younger soldiers exchanged glances. One of them scoffed, trying to bring the laughter back. Come now, Commander. Surely you jest. They are unpredictable, perhaps, but dangerous. Zelvar exhaled slowly, setting down his drink. Unpredictable is a dangerous thing. His voice was measured, calm. But humans are more than that. They are something else entirely. The group leaned in slightly. Curiosity, now. A shift in the air. One of the officers, older than the rest, but still young by Zelvar's standards, folded his arms. You speak as if you have seen them in battle. A pause. Then a quiet answer. I have. Silence. The officer narrowed his eyes. And Zelvar turned his gaze to the fire, watching the embers glow and shift. Then he looked back at them, at their expectant faces, and said, They do not fight like us. They do not think like us. And when the moment demands it, they do not die like us. A ripple of unease passed through the group. No one spoke now. Zelvar adjusted his posture, his voice dropping slightly, the weight of memory settling over his words. You think of war as a contest, strength against strength, honor against honor. But to humans, war is not a contest. It is survival. And nothing in this galaxy survives like they do. A few shifted uncomfortably. The younger ones, the ones who had never lost a battle, never felt the edge of true fear, still held skepticism in their eyes. But the older ones, they listened. The firelight flickered across Zelvar's features, casting shadows as he leaned forward. You want to know what makes them terrifying? The younger soldier swallowed. Yes, a slow nod, then listened carefully, and Zelvar began his tale. Karanvi was supposed to be an easy victory. That's what the war strategist said. That's what the projections showed. The human forces were outnumbered, outgunned, and cornered on a frozen rock with no reinforcements in sight. The Karan Empire had crushed countless civilizations before them, their war machine relentless, efficient. This was just another battle, another conquest. But then the killing started. Not in the way war was expected to unfold. No grand clashes. No formations meeting in honorable combat. No, the humans didn't fight like that. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Karan vanguard lost contact. Just silence over the comms. Then static. Then screaming. When reinforcements arrived to investigate, they found nothing but bodies. No enemy signatures. No signs of battle. Just an entire regiment wiped out. Panic set in. Not openly. Not yet. But in the way officers spoke in hushed voices. In the way soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Because they had never fought an enemy they couldn't see. The next night, it got worse. The forward operating base had been fortified. Motion sensors, drone patrols, automated turrets. Every measure was in place. It didn't matter. By morning, The command center was burning, and every high-ranking officer was dead. No alarms, no distress signals, just bodies, left in positions that suggested they hadn't even had time to draw their weapons. The humans weren't just winning. They were hunting. That's when the real fear set in. The Quran forces were made of warriors, bred for combat, trained in tactics honed over centuries. They understood battle. But this wasn't battle. This was something else. Patrols started refusing to go out at night. Soldiers muttered about shadows moving where they shouldn't. The wind carried sounds that didn't belong. Whispers in an alien tongue, laughter that was too human, too mocking. And then the psychological warfare began. Comms channels, once secure, were hijacked. Instead of orders, they broadcast unsettling noises, static-laced breathing, the heartbeat of something massive and unseen. Sometimes, they played recorded screams from their own soldiers, distorted and stretched into something inhuman. It broke them. Some fled their posts, running blindly into the ice fields. They were never seen again. Others turned on each other, paranoia driving them mad. By the time the humans actually attacked, the Quran forces weren't an army anymore. They were prey. The final engagement wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. The Quran war machine, the one that had ground entire civilizations into dust, collapsed in a single night. The humans had drawn them into a valley, a seemingly perfect trap. Except the Quran believed they had the numbers to push through. They charged forward, only to realize too late that the humans had rigged the mountains above them. The entire landscape came down. Tens of thousands of Quran troops wiped out in an instant. Those who survived found themselves trapped, disoriented, struggling through the snow and rubble, until the humans emerged from the storm, silent and methodical, finishing what was left. Not one Quran soldier escaped. The Empire surrendered within the year. They had the forces to keep fighting, the resources, the means. But they had seen what humanity could do, and more importantly, they had learned something terrifying. Humans didn't fight wars. They ended them. The Zenith Dominion prided itself on breaking minds. Their interrogators were unrivaled, their prisons inescapable. It wasn't enough to defeat an enemy. They had to shatter them, to reduce them to something less than they were. And in all their centuries of conquest, no prisoner had ever left Xiphos 9 unbroken. Then they captured a human, Captain Elias Carter, a soldier, nothing more. No cybernetic enhancements, no psionic abilities, no special lineage. Just a man. And yet, in their arrogance, the Zenith did not realize their mistake. At first, they treated him like any other prisoner. Isolation, sleep deprivation, chemical persuasion, the usual steps, the ones that always worked. But something was different this time. The human endured. Days passed, then weeks, then months. His body suffered. That much was clear. But his mind, untouched. He did not beg. He did not weep. He did not break. The interrogators tried new methods. They pulled memories from his mind, twisted them, replayed them over and over. They made him watch his failures, his regrets, his worst moments stretched into eternity. But each time they brought him to the brink, he would whisper something under his breath. At first, they thought it was delirium. Then they listened. He was laughing. It was small at first, a chuckle, a breath of amusement. But over time, it grew. Every time they tried to break him, he laughed. Not out of joy, not out of defiance. Something worse. He laughed because he knew something they didn't, and that unsettled them. So they changed tactics. No more mind games. No more illusions. They took him to the lower levels, where flesh was reduced to numbers, where pain was just another calculation. They expected him to scream. He did not. He watched them with quiet eyes as they worked, as they pushed past limits no other species could endure. And when one of them finally asked, "What are you?" Carter gave the only answer that mattered. Human. It was then, and only then, that they realized their mistake. Because Carter wasn't just enduring, he was waiting. Every session, every moment of pain, he was learning. The schedule of the guards, the weak points of his cell, the placement of security systems. He was studying them. And then, one night, the alarms went off. By the time the Zenith knew what was happening, Carter had already moved. He had taken down 2 guards with his bare hands, used their weapons to eliminate a third. He was injured, weak, starved, but it didn't matter. He had waited long enough. He didn't just escape. He tore through the facility, releasing prisoners, turning captives into soldiers, using the very tools meant to break him against those who had wielded them. By dawn, the prison was his. When the warden of Xiphos 9 was dragged before him, trembling, he dared to ask, "How did you survive this long?" Carter wiped the blood from his face, looked him in the eye, and answered, "Because you don't know what a human is. Xiphos 9 fell that day. The Dominion never built another prison like it. And Carter? He simply walked away." The tribunal chamber was silent. 100 voices once eager to speak now held their tongues, their gazes fixed on the lone figure standing before them. General Zelvar, hero of a dozen campaigns, survivor of countless battles, stood unarmed, unarmored, facing the most powerful leaders of the Galactic Council. They had called this meeting to decide humanity's fate. The accusations were many, too dangerous, too unpredictable, a species that refused to fight by the accepted rules of war. The Council had seen the reports. Entire fleets lost, empires shattered, forces superior in number and technology brought to ruin by humans who should have never stood a chance. Some demanded humanity be contained, their expansion restricted, their influence minimized. Others whispered of extermination, a preemptive strike before the humans became too powerful to stop. And through it all, Zelvar remained silent, waiting. Finally, High Chancellor Kreenis spoke. "You have seen them firsthand," he said, his voice carefully measured. "Tell us, General, do you believe humanity should be restrained?" Zelvar lifted his gaze, his golden eyes sweeping across the gathered counselors. When he finally spoke, his words were calm, deliberate. "You all make the same mistake." Murmurs spread through the chamber, but Zelvar continued, his voice cutting through the noise. "You believe humans are dangerous because of their weapons, their tactics, their refusal to fight as we do." He shook his head. "But those are not the reasons you fear them." The murmurs faded. "You fear them because, despite everything we have, everything we are, they keep winning." A silence heavier than any weapon settled over the room. "They do not win because they are stronger. They do not win because they are smarter. They win because they refuse to accept defeat. They do not break. They do not yield. They do not stop." He took a slow breath before continuing. "I once asked a human how they had survived, how they had endured so much loss, so much suffering, and still found the strength to keep fighting. Do you know what he told me?" He let the silence stretch before speaking again. "Because we have to." Zelvar turned his gaze to the High Chancellor. "That is the truth of humanity. They do not fight for conquest. They do not fight for power. They fight because their history is written in struggle, because survival is their only constant. To them, war is not a test of strength. It is a promise, to themselves, to their kind, that no matter the odds, no matter the cost, they will endure." A long pause. "And that, Chancellor, is why you will never defeat them." The council chamber erupted into debate, voices clashing like the armies they sought to control. Some still called for restrictions, others for alliances, but Zelvar had said all he needed to. As he turned to leave, one of the younger counselors, nervous, uncertain, called after him, "Then tell us, General, if we cannot stop them, what should we do?" Zelvar paused at the doorway. Then, without turning back, he gave his final answer. "Pray they never see us as the enemy.